Arutperumjothi Arutperumjothi Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi 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 Taniperum Karunai Arutperumjothi.
Neuroscientists did an emotional research study. This study is based on the survival. What they did was they imposed a fear conditioning task on mice. So in laboratories, what they do is they test everything with mice, right? So in that laboratory condition, what they did was they exposed the mice to a neutral stimulus like a tone. So they give a tone like a sound, a specific tone. Followed by that will be an electric shock in its feet. So the sound followed by the electric shock. So after a few trials, what happened was the animal learned to associate the neutral stimulus, in this case, which is the sound, with the shock. And they were monitoring the condition of what is happening inside the mice, actually. So the mice, when the electric shock was given, it was frozen, it freezes itself. Its heartbeat starts increasing. Its blood pressure starts increasing. And its muscle tension was increasing too. And what they found was, they found there are certain areas in the brain which is responsible for invoking this fear. We'll see all those things later. But fear is an unpleasant emotion. It is the path to the dark side. So let's take for a person who is middle-aged. His fear is going to be like job security. How is the job going to be? How is my day-to-day work affecting my job? How is my career progression? Am I going to improve in my career? Or am I not going to do that improvement and I'm going to stay in the same place? Can I get off from this rental home? Is it possible to build a rental own home for my family and for myself and be in a home of my own? So that fear is always there. Even after that home, what happens to the mortgage of that home? Am I able to make the mortgage payment regularly? How about the loans on the cars or the other vehicles which is being taken? The debts, the credit card bills, the schools for the kids' education, the welfare of the kids, investments. How is my stock doing? How my bond is doing? What's going to happen in the future? So all these fear always resides within us during our course of our age. What's happening to our health? If there's an issue with health, then we don't even have to ask about it. And then retirement. Do I have money for my retirement at this point of time? So all these things are there. But after that stage, for grandparents and grandmothers, they're like the trunk of the tree. They have to fear not only for them and their family, but also for the family of family too, for the grandkids. How are they doing? They try to help them. You could see grandmothers and grandfathers who are helping their kids, even though they are not working. They're saving all the money just for spending to them. Words can't even do justice for the love and sacrifice what they've been doing to their kids and grandkids. So husbands and wife at those stages might have to fear for one another if one might leave early than the other. So fear kicks in there as well. When someone is children, They might be fear of darkness. Ours fear of darkness. So does lots of kids have seen too. There are images which could haunt them. Courses, examinations, and then career paths. What career do I choose? Is this the best career for me? Insecurity, not feeling secure enough. Aging parents, all these things. So in our life, pretty much every single time we fear for lots of things, even in our day-to-day activity. Think about it. We go to our office, we fear for it. Oh, are we going at the right time? Do we know that most of the heart attacks and stroke happens in Monday? That's according to the research study, a research study done actually. Because what's happening? Monday is the most stressful day, because after Sunday evening, the moods might start to change. We start getting into the Monday mood, already into the office stuff. But fear could be an imagination too, or a belief that something or someone dangerous, something dangerous is going to happen and it's going to cause pain to us. It is a threat. It's an imagination. It hasn't happened yet for the most part. And the dynamics of it might change every time in fear. It varies per person. Every person has their own fear. But the first step is to identify what that fear is. In the list, it might differ. It might differ. You might have something totally different than what we were even talking about. But the first one is identifying that this is a fear. This is my fear. So that's what we are going to talk about today. With this, let's get into it. So first, let's see, when do we fear? We do fear for our own survival. When there is an issue in our survival or threat to oneself, we do fear. All of our fear comes from this major theme. And then it doesn't even stop there. It's just a continuation. So emotions are continual. One emotion can lead to multiple other emotions. It gets manifested to stress, anxiety. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? Because there is something in me for that. That's why somebody is anxious about it, to know what's happening, because something needs to happen for them and they fear for that. So that's the reason why anxiety comes in. And the more and more we get that feel into it, it eventually becomes our stress, cause of our stress. Then we know what are all the things which happens after that too. So this is the base reason when the fear kicks in. The other one, the major one, which could be, is the fear of failure. This fear of failure could be a good thing when it comes initially, but the more we feel about it and it gets too stronger, then it could be a problem. Because at that time, what happens is we won't even attempt for it, because we fear the humiliation, we fear the shame in our surroundings, in the environment where we are. And nobody wants to be humiliated in front of others. So when the fear is too much, there might be no attempts there too. So Perumal, when saying about fear, which is the fourth cause of destroying the body, and that's the main reason why we have taken this subject too, is because it destroys the body too. Perumal says, do not fear anything, but at the same time, you got fear for what you must. So there are some things which you have to fear for. And Thiruvanamalai puts that as well. Anjuvad anjamai pedamai anjuvad anjal arivilar tolil. So you have to be fearful of something. So that's where basically the intelligence kicks in. So when committing a sin, when a life is in danger, then fear has to be there. We can't say that, oh, I do not fear when a life is in danger or when trying to commit a sin. There's also another Thirukural for that too. தீவினையார் அஞ்சார் விழுமியார் அஞ்சுவர் தீவினை என்னும் ஜெருக்கு, which means evil men don't fear committing evil deeds, basically, but good men always fear of committing evil deeds. So it is common for fearness to be there. And what happens is, in that Thirukural, what we were talking about, the evilness, when it keeps continuing, then the fear goes on. We will see more in detail how that happens. So that's why it is said, always a good thing leads to a good thing, and the bad thing leads to a bad thing. So how do we feel when we experience this fear? The heartbeat is faster. The heartbeat is irregular. This is the same thing what happened with the mice experiment too. The blood flow starts increasing, the heartbeat starts increasing, then it became frozen. So those things were all tested, and that's exactly what is happening in real time too, in our experience as well. The muscles become stiff. So when the fear kicks in, we try to run, but we are still in the same place, but we try to keep running. That's what happens. We just think that we are running, but we are not in the same place. We start sweating, lose bowel movement, and sometimes we can't even handle it. We just go dizzy all the way, and sometimes even faint. And then people nearby has to help. And then trembling, shivering, that can happen when people fear for something. And it's definitely hard to focus either. So fearing and learning doesn't mix at all. It's like oil and water. Too much of stress hormone is not also good actually for memory and also learning. So cortisol, too much is definitely not good either. So we won't be able to focus, and it's not good for the enhancement of the memory as well. So we can't focus during that time too. So these are all the feelings which we go through at the time of fear. So let's see how Perumal was feeling. எளியரை வலியார் அடித்தபோது ஐயோ என் மனம் கலங்கிய கலக்கம். So when a modest person was thrashed by a dominant person, he wasn't able to bear it. He feared for that person. களிரை கண்டு பயந்த என் பயந்தான் கடலினும் பெரிது கண்டாய். Kalir is basically hedonist. Hedonist is somebody who doesn't care for anybody. So what they do is they basically care for only themselves. And whatever happens or whatever actions they perform, it really doesn't matter to them as long as they are happy. So they're called hedonists. So Perumal feared for hedonists for more than sea. He feared them a lot. அலியற்பால் கொடியர் செய்த வெங்கொடுமை அறிந்த என் நடுக்கம் ஆர் அறிவார். So the cruelty alleged to innocent people, Perumal feared for them as well. He was trembling, seeing all those things. துண்ணெனக் கொடியோர் பிறவுயிர் கொள்ளத் தொடங்கிய போதெல்லாம் பயந்தேன். கண்ணினால் ஐயோ பிறவுயிர் பதைக்கக் கண்ட காலத்திலும் பதைத்தேன். So when an evil person is killing a life, he was really fearful. He trembled in that fear. And when he saw those things struggling, when the life was struggling, he was really feared on that too. மண்ணினில் வலையும் தூண்டிலும் கன்னி வகைகளும். So this is the nets and baits which the fisherman and all the people who used to catch those animals. So when he saw those things, he was really fearful. He says, "Oh, my gracious parents, you are the one who knows that how fearful I was when I go through all these things." So he was fearful for lots of other things. There is a whole new section. There's a big chapter where we can write a book on how fearful he was on some of the lives when he saw outside. And this is just a sample on that. But what does fear cost us? We know what fear is. We know how to identify our fear. We know how it feels. But what does it cost us? It's an impediment to our success. We cannot succeed, basically. It halts our success. It doesn't bring our talent out. It conceals the talent. So people might have good ideas on business. They know how to do it. They know what to invest on. They know things kids know what to do. But at the right time, during the examination, when fear kicks in, things might not work good. Same thing. I think even in our experience too, we might have gone through this and say like, oh, you know what? I know exactly. I know this particular land. If I would have got it, I was going to buy this land. And if I would have got that at that time, I would have been a millionaire by this time. But I didn't get it. I have an idea of this. I should have started my own company. And I know if I would have done it, this is exactly the similar idea. This person did it. See how success that business is? That can happen too. But things didn't happen. So it impedes our success. So fear does impede our success. That's the major problem, actually, with fear. It is a problem to us, actually. In even our day-to-day life, actually, it's a problem to us. We really do not even realize sometimes that we are fearful of some things. But we have been through that process so many times that we fail to realize and recognize that is a fear. And that thought, and that is coming because we are fearful of some other thing. Because we have got used to it. It's become a part of our life now. It destroys our body. So this is very good stats by the Indian Heart Association. So I said that Monday mornings are the best time where you can see, according to the stat, people really are stressed, and more heart attacks are seen during that time, right, at Monday, from the stats of the week, right? But the other alarming stats is that 60% of the world's health disease is in India, basically. But India doesn't Let's take a look at the whole population. 60% of the heart disease. It's a silent killer, slowly creeping into us. It's an epidemic too, if we think about it, but we do not talk about it. Right? Not lots of researches have been done. At least it's been said by some associations that, things are coming, things are bad, like that. And another interesting fact is, at least this is a good news for older people, for elders, is that the estimate indicates that approximately 60% of these heart diseases, right, is in India, but in our ethnicity, people less than 50 years, right, are susceptible to get 50% of all the heart attacks. So less than 50 years is what, all these heart attacks are going to happen. So it's, and then 25% for less than 40 years. So these things are basically, we're talking about middle-aged men in here. So middle-aged is what we have to really watchful of at this time. This is a staggering number, actually, based on high mortality rates. It's a crazy number, actually, because there is no well-balanced diet, or the lifestyle has changed. We don't do any exercise. There's lots of stress. Urban, rural areas, both of them, you see stents, heart issues, and all those things, very common. Hypertension, pretty much everybody has in a family. Everybody eats one or two of those tablets on a daily basis. Diabetes, and then, just keeps on going like that. Fear is responsible for anger. Let's say that if we introduce a competition to ourselves, if someone is competing with someone in their job, it may lead to anger. Say that, right? And what anger leads to? Anger leads to hate. We don't like that person anymore. Because we think we are competing with that person. He's going to take our job. He's going to take the money. He's going to steal something from us. I mean, not really stealing, literally. But that's how we are thinking. Right? That is the fear in us, which is kicking. So fear also restricts us from getting into spirituality, not having the courage to surrender. Let's say, for instance, that currently, right? Listen to me carefully. Right now, the Godhead comes in, Arutperumjothi comes in, and he's saying, come and merge with me right now. Right? No second thoughts. Come and merge with me right now. What do we do? Ayya, oru 10 nimisham, at least 1 hour. We'll ask for time. Let me at least convey my bank details to my family, right? Let me make sure my kids are good. I got to say something to them. I got to make sure everything is okay. They don't know what I have invested in. I'm not sure they know about this thing. I'm not sure they know about the other thing. All these things happen. Animals attack human because of fear. So this is the human-animal conflict, which is happening throughout the places. So we get into these areas, these forest areas or something. So animals really, most of the time, they don't intend to attack people. But due to the fear, because they are threatened by people, so they attack for their survival. Basically, that's what's happening for the most part. Same thing with land animal or water animals too. So they do also fear and they start attacking too. So this fear actually is across the board. Everybody, animal, human, everybody. Let's look at what fear science is. So this is the experiment which we saw with the mice. So they took the mice, they put all the neuroscientists, they had all their they call maybe stem cells or the stuff which they can measure inside the body to see what's happening inside the brain, what's happening in the heart rate, what's happening in their pulses, the blood flow, all those things. So the last we saw, they were giving shocks, and then their blood flow started to increase, their heart rate started to increase, their muscles became stiff. Okay, so after these experiments were performed a couple of times, what they did was, this is the key point. After they performed this experiment a couple of times, what they did was they stopped giving the shock. So it is only the stimuli. So it is only the sound, the tone what they were giving before the shock. So it was the tone followed by the shock, the tone followed by the shock. That's how it was going. And they measured the benchmarks of what was happening. So they know exactly what's happening. And then they stop the shock completely. Now they give only the sound, the tone only. And when they give the tone, automatically the mice was exhibiting the exact physical changes in the body. The same fear it was going through the shock, the blood flow, the tension in the muscles, the heartbeat, everything was exactly the same as the body freezing, exactly the same how it was going through the shock. There was basically no difference. So now only the sound and the body. So when measuring those, it matched perfectly. So they don't even have to give a shock now. So the animal feared for it. So when the fear kicks in, before even something happening physically, all these physical changes started happening. So what was understood was there is something called as amygdala. And when I heard this first, actually, I said, what? Amygdala. Sounds like that, though. Amygdala. The name doesn't matter. We use that amygdala. That's also really a fear. That's what we used for grinding. That takes place of the security these days, and that's really fearful too. When you see that size of that amygdala, people are feared even to come, and sometimes it's people inside the home are also fearful. So, but I don't think the name came from that. Amygdala came from something else. I'm not sure about that. So they said this part is what invoked the fear. In the snapshot, you can see this amygdala, which is right in the back of the ears. Basically, there are two amygdalas. And what happens is, this is what is responsible for kicking off these fears. So let's say that you are alone in a home in a night, right? You're doing something. There is nobody there in the hall or in the kitchen doing some work, doing something. no sound. You're the only person working on it. You are focusing on the work. And then you turn around and you suddenly see somebody standing next to you. That first shock, what you get, right? The first one, that is invoked by this amygdala. That's the fear center. So it is connected to our sensory organs, sound, light, through our eye, through our ears. So it's connected through our senses. What happens is basically the thalamus sends information to amygdala, and that when the amygdala responds, it's called as unconscious implicit memory. So any action, what we take, what we do from that process, right? From that implicit memory, unconsciously. So when we are in fear, we don't even know what we do. It could be anything. We might even slap that person, right? So we may do anything. So that's unconscious memory. At the same time, this thalamus also sent to the visual cortex. So it sends to amygdala and also the visual cortex at the same time. But there is a small delay because the visual cortex processes it. It explicitly understands through the knowledge and it consciously responds. And it says, oh, this is basically a shadow of my husband who was trying to scare me here. Pay on the ground or whatever it is, right? So that consciousness is coming through the visual context, and that is through the explicit memory. That's not responded by amygdala, but rather responded through those visual cortexes. So this is the result of the experiments. But the experiment doesn't stop here. So the neuroscientist, it's really emerging field and a technology as well. Not lots of things have been studied, and it's in works as well. So they were really interested. They wanted to understand more and more. So they said, okay, fine, this mice is really now exhibiting all the fear. Similarly, we might have our own fear of something. It might really have not happened. It's an imagination that this probably is a threat to us for our survival or something like that. Lots of fears are like that. It's mostly our imagination. And it hasn't really happened yet. So scientists were thinking, the neuroscientists were thinking, okay, this poor mice, when it hears the tone, it just freaks out. It just goes motionless. It freezes itself. The heartbeat pumps in. The blood flow goes in. Hypertension, right? Is the blood flow going. So what happened was they iterated the process. So they kept repeating just the sound only. So they saw the physical changes happening in the mice, and they repeated this sound, and then they measured the sound. But as they keep going, the mice started to learn that nothing bad is happening to it. So slowly, that symptoms, what it was exhibiting in the heartbeat and blood flow, it slowly started gradually reducing. And finally, it learned that there is no problem with this sound, and it totally became normal. So that is an important point in there. So now let's come to the main point. How do we overcome it? So what we were talking basically aligns with this. We basically have to convince the mind and face the fear. Anjade nenje anjade, anjade nenje anjade. Perumal says, can convince the mind and face the fear. So let's take a look at this one too. Iduvarai adiyen. So this one is, Perumal goes through a huge list of stuff about fear, like what he feared about. And then finally, he talks about this one. This is the final one, close to the final one. இதுவரை அடியேன் அடைந்த வெம்பயமும் இடர்களும் துன்பமும் எல்லாம் பொதுவலர் பொருளே பிறர் பொருட்டலால் புலையனின் பொருட்டல்ல. So, what I was fearing all this time is because for others, basically, not for myself. Clearly tells, I fear for all the lives what has been happening, what has been going through, what's been happening around. That's what I've been fearful of, and not for myself. And he also says, எதிலும் ஓர் ஆசை இலை இலை பயமும் மற்றிலை எந்தாய். So I do not really have any desires, basically, and I do not fear for it. I don't have any desire. But I do not fear personally, right? So, but reducing desires can also help to get rid of the fear. Too much desires in the world. We desire a lot. Is there even a limit for it? We have one goal. I want to buy a home. Okay, we buy a home. Fine. What's the next one? Okay, I want to get rid of all my loans. I want to complete my loans. We got the loans done. I want to rent a home. So I get a passive income. That's fine. We buy another home, we rent it. Oh, one home is not enough. Maybe I would like to rent 5 more homes. Okay, fine. Let's go ahead and buy 5 more homes and do it. No, that's still not enough. I want to go to the next level. Now I want to build a mall. Right? I want to build this. I want to build that. It doesn't stop. Are we able to put a stopping point there? That's a tough one. Grow the knowledge. So we saw what we fear of, how we fear of. This is another important point for it. Thiruludayar ellam seivallar. People with wisdom and knowledge, he can do stuff. So when there is knowledge, when there is intelligence involved, that person has to be less fearful than the person who doesn't have the knowledge. If I am 100% confident this talk is going to be good with the knowledge, or this land is going to be good. If I build a home in here, it's going to give me a better yield in the next 5 years, 10 years. What should I be fearful of? Right? So that knowledge, if I'm 100% sure on all those things, my exams, I know everything thoroughly, what should I be fearful of? Really doesn't matter. I just have to practice it more and more. We have to face the fear. That's what the first point comes in. Face the fear. I have to keep practicing it, getting used to it, and then grow my knowledge. That's more than enough. I'm not scared of anything now. What should I be scared of? Right? So the knowledge here is very important, because not just because of that. When we are fearful, because it is our emotion which is driving it. It's not the intelligence. So the decisions, the brain, what's happening is the decisions are being invoked by the emotions and not by intelligence. And emotions is always harmful. They are based on greed. They're based on hatred. They're based on delusion. So we have to develop the intelligence and knowledge to get through the fear. to be successful in life and also to spirituality as well. No cunningness, purity of mind. This is another main thing too. So what we think, what we do, action, are totally different. Lots of times we think about something, we say different things, we do totally different things. We create our own bubble and try to preserve that bubble and try to be inside that bubble, to maintain that bubble. Soodarindir, Vadarindir, Thuimai Arindilere. Jnanasariyai Perumal says. So we learned all these Sudha and Vada. Nobody needs to teach to us. It just comes. But the purity, no. We didn't still learn it. So purity of mind helps. Where there is no cunningness, why should be someone be fear of? Because this is what I think, this is what I talk, this is what I do. What should I be fear of? Nothing. I don't keep anything, any grudges inside me. I don't act on my grudges. I don't keep a bubble. I don't keep a bubble like this. I do not establish my own. What do they call it as? My own stigma, or I can't recall the name there. But I'm not creating that environment or that setup and trying to be in it for this person and for a different person. I'm trying to be in a totally different way. No, nothing like that. It's all one. It's all one all the way through. Having fulfillment. HM, not getting satisfied. So once we get satisfied, things are all good. I'm satisfied with what we have. So once we are satisfied, we won't have that much fear because what we have is good. Not committing mistakes or sin. Sedigal tavir selva malikindra. So sedigal is mistakes, sins, wrong things. So we don't want to commit mistakes. The more mistakes we commit, the more sin we commit, the more fearful we be. We have to be feared of those things because, of course, we have committed all these mistakes and stuff. And right now, there is no other option just to go through this thing. So not committing mistakes or sin helps in here. Okay, last but not least, establish relationship. So let's say us, we say our kid's name, husband telling wife's name, wife saying husband's name. How many times in a day? So many times in a day. And we have a relationship in here. And why is all these things? Because we trust. The parents trust their kid, their son and their daughter. Because when we are in a dire situation, at some time, they might help us. Our son might help. So through those relationships, we establish a bonding and we trust them. So we trust them through those relationships. And that is main because we might need their help when we become older. And at that time, when we have a good relationship, the good bonding between us is there. When there is a good bond, trust automatically develops in there. Things are better. And at old age, when there's a problem, they come and look for us. How did Perumal establish his relationship? Yeah, he was also saying, Muchukku 600 தடவை, not 300 தடவை, 600 தடவை. But what happened here? He wasn't saying about his parents, how we have been saying, or his wife. So he always refers to as Endai, Entai plus Tandai. So ஒளித்துரைக்கின்றேன் அலன் நான் வாய்ப்பறையார்க்கின்றேன். So I'm not somebody who hide. I'm just saying it. I'm announcing it in public. ஒரு சிறிதும் அச்சமுலேன் உள்ளபடி உணர்ந்தேன். Not even fearful, not even a little bit fearful. Without fear, I am just exposing everything. அளித்திரு சிற்றம்பலத்தென் அப்பன் அருள் பெறவே என் அப்பன் அருள் பெறவே. Who is saying, come and get my dad's grace. So come and get my dad's grace. ஆசையுண்டில் வம்மின் இங்கே நேசமுடையீரே. So all compassionate people, come and get my dad's grace. How confident. And then we can see that thing throughout my dad, my mom. And then it also keeps going to ஆசையுண்டேல் வம்மின் இங்கே அருட்ஜோதி பெருமான் அம்மையுமாய் அப்பனுமாய். He continues like that. So my mom, my dad. And then he says, எண்ணியவார் அளித்தான். So he just gave me whatever I was thinking. எல்லாம் செய் வல்ல சித்தன் என் உயிரில் கலந்தான். And what was he thinking? He was thinking about merging with God. So he says, he merged with me too. So what we have done is basically, we have taken what Perumal has given us and we have tried to retrofit that to the world, and we have also tried to actually cross-compare that at the same time too. So with this, I think we are coming close to our session time too.
Jodi